The healing waters. We're in it deep, right? So do we allow ourselves to be there when we feel this energy? Do we allow ourselves to stay in this energy when we feel that calm? Because out in the world, we could say, there's a lot going on in the world today, and it can actually change the pace of our hearts. It is changing, the pace of the world is changing as we sit here today. And we get to tap into this healing energy that we're in right now. We get to slow down. And so it's testimony as we created that reality this morning that it seems the world is on continuous nonstop movement at a fast pace. But it is in the God mind where we can quiet ourselves internally. Although there are many external changes happening, unexplained changes. Maybe you feel like you're at an amusement park sometimes on a really exciting roller coaster ride. Maybe one really scary roller coaster ride. It's kind of a metaphor I thought of as there was a place where I was born here in St. Pete, but I grew up in Ohio. There's a place called Cedar Point where it had some of the biggest, scariest roller coasters. So maybe that's the ride that you feel like you're on right now with all the changes. Not at this moment. I'd like to stay in this moment and just really recognize what we've created here. But maybe you feel like sometimes out in the world, you're in a game of musical chairs. You know, that game where the music's playing and then there's a chair that's pulled out and maybe it won't be yours. So that could be a feeling out in the world, that could be another game, wondering if there's a seat left for you. But again, that's the world stage. And the metaphor in that, the world stage, the theater, right? We all are being nudged to take notice and be mindful. And this morning is testimony to that. We get to be mindful of our healing powers and the healing waters that we get to tap into that we did during meditation this morning and with the wonderful music. Visiting the healing waters metaphysically, what does that mean? It means we get to stop and take notice, to stop and notice our steps and our words and notice where we're going. Sometimes we're on autopilot. How many of you have been driven down the road and you got to where you're going and you went, wait a minute, how did I get there? It was by habit you got there because your subconscious took you there. And so we get to stop and notice, maybe be mindful to what we're thinking and our thoughts that we're thinking and what is controlling our mind. And are we controlling our own mind? That's the mindfulness in healing. To take time out before speaking and to notice our emotions and where they're coming from. Are they our own emotions or somebody else's? To take note of our thoughts and actually while we're in the healing waters, we get to notice the reality that we've created for ourselves. In Unity, we know Unity Principle 3 is our thoughts and mind create our reality. So take a deep breath. We have to take a deep breath and be mindful of our emotions. And how are we treating ourselves? Are we being compassionate with ourselves? Are we being angry with ourselves? Do we trust in ourselves enough? And do we have forgiveness of self in all the things that we've gone through or are going through or our reactions to them? These are some heavy hitters and some heavy work to do in the healing waters. Right out of the gate. You know, in the Buddhist tradition, it says mindfulness is referred to as taking refuge. The Buddhist life finds merit in taking refuge, and every 4 hours, refuge provides a place of shelter, safety, and protection from suffering. Refuge is also known as a spiritual commitment to self, taking that time out, what I had just referred to as mindfulness. Refuge is a place where we can seek guidance to ethical living, to meditation and wisdom, and protection from suffering. When we go into the space, that's your connection with your higher self. We actually are taking a Unity Foundations class, and we talked about what am I in our Unity class Wednesday night, and we have the trifecta. You know, we hear the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit in some religions, and in Unity we call it the physical body, the soul, and the spirit. And so we also hear in psychology, it's the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious. And so when we're connecting with that God presence, if anybody has trouble with that word God, or injury, or past experiences, we can use that as our super consciousness or the cosmic consciousness, and that's where we actually get the spiritual commitment in connection to that through our meditations and our time of listening. So the Buddhists say the spiritual commitment is referred to as a path of liberation or freedom, and that is free from suffering. And in Christianity, we refer to Jesus and what would Jesus do and what Jesus taught the people in the Bible who were suffering. He demonstrated his faith to those who came across and shared the idea of oneness with God. But just as he has spoken, I and the Father are one, or the Father and I are one. Jesus, the man, practiced his faith devoutly, and he spoke intently, and he spoke with certainty. He didn't say, well, I don't know if I can heal that person or not. It wasn't him that was taking credit for it. It was him sharing the word that he and the Father were one, which we get to do here as ambassadors of God as well. Our faith, we can speak with certainty when we are mindful of our words. And so the power of healing and the power of working miracles is what God has given man, and Jesus spoke. God gave man the tremendous spiritual power of healing through us. Through us. God works through us, through our indwelling spirit. So how's our spirit? How's your spirit? And do you hear the spirit that's going on out with different people? A few weeks back, we talked about the well-spirited, or the high-spirited, or the low-spirited, the mean-spirited. So we get to look at that. How is our spirit internally? How are we doing? Jesus said to pray continuously. And our words, our everyday actions in Unity, we know this is truth. The truth is that our everyday actions are our most powerful prayers. And I'll repeat that. Our everyday actions are our most powerful prayers. So it's not, our prayers are not an act of separation from who we are and what we're doing and where we're going. Our prayers are our words as we speak, even when we're walking and talking with our friends and our loved ones. Those are our prayers. So a few things I heard today, if we're mindful as we speak, our words become our prayers and our power. And so maybe you've heard this past week, some adverse things. With so much action in the world, we might have heard or said, it's easy to say things like this. Without us being mindful, it's very easy. I just didn't have any time to meditate. I just can't add another thing to my list. I'm barely staying afloat. How am I going to ever get by with all these changes? So when we are mindful, these words are very easy to say because they come from our subconscious or our programming or our past of where we've been. But today we're really being called, and last week I said, it's go time. We get to put our faith on. Today we're really being called to step up our mindfulness a notch, to really focus on what we're saying to create our future or our reality. So a couple things that we could change. We could change the I can't or I don't have enough time to. I have all the time to do the things I need to do. And the other one is that these changes are challenging. I hear that one a lot too. And so we get to embrace the challenge. And Jesus spoke of our wholeness happens with our oneness with God, not only by ourselves. We are co-creators with God. And I'd like to call this Soulful Sunday because we are connected with our soul and the Spirit of God. We gain a deeper trust when we trust ourselves more. Probably one of my biggest lessons in life was when I didn't trust something exterior to me, I had to really take a look and do the internal journey in the healing waters of why don't I trust this situation? The situation that we may not trust is, do we trust ourselves? Do we trust the certainty within ourselves, that foundation and that knowing and that center that we are children of God? We are connected. I and the Father are one. So the invisible force of spirit is something that we do in Christianity. We rely on the invisible force that we don't know, whether you call it spirit or cosmic consciousness or God, or refer to Jesus, the Son of God, as your power and presence. So last week I said, it's go time. And maybe we're not ready to go and change something. Maybe we're not ready to surrender all the things that were of the past. But the past is gone. And we get to move forward and look at the future as something bright and something that we're actually look forward to. What happens when you don't feel so in control of your future, or when we don't feel so in control of our future? We trust more on that invisible force. And that's where our faith increases. Our faith increases when we believe in the invisible force that takes us and answers the prayers and the words that we speak. Well, I have a story, and it is in Matthew 14:22. And this is a time where it was right after Jesus and his disciples fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And Jesus insisted that his disciples go ahead of him after they were done feeding all of the people. His disciples were going to go ahead in the boat. And they went ahead across the sea in the boat, and Jesus says, go ahead. And later, after all the people were gone, he walked up to the top of the mountain and prayed. And then that evening at dawn, the weather started to get a little iffy, and the boat started to rock on the waves. And so all the disciples had saw Jesus walking on water. And he was walking on the water, and they couldn't believe their eyes. And so, meanwhile, they were in trouble from the strong winds. And Jesus said, come, to his disciples. And said, it takes courage. He said, take courage. It is not to be afraid. And Peter replied, Lord, if it is you, tell me to come to you on the water. And so he did. He said, come, Peter. Well, Peter got down off the boat, and he was in clutched hands, fully in control of the situation, and grabbed the side of the boat and walked 1, 2, 3 steps And then he got afraid. He looked at the wind, and the boat started rocking, and the waves started moving higher. And so he looked away and was distracted and became afraid, and he started to sink. And then it was during that time of desperation where he's sinking in the water. He thought he had it all under control. And then he cried out, "Lord, help me. Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus reached out and held his hand and caught him. Jesus said, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" It was in that moment Peter changed his focus on fear and panic, and we all do that. The story reminds us that we all do that. We change our focus on fear, panic, desperation, suffering, and then we lose our focus. And it's easy to do with such fast-paced changes. And this is what we saw, he lost his faith. So one of the things that we can do to focus our minds or stay mindfulness is we get to transmute our negative emotions into our positive emotions. This is the practice. It's not overnight. We get to practice as we go into that time of refuge or the healing waters to really focus on how can I transmute fear, grief, guilt, shame, anger, or disappointment into faith or willingness, acceptance, courage, and reason. So we get to trust ourselves even more. And we know with our faith and our belief, we can heal. We can heal internally. We have that healing power. And we did that this morning together. Healing doesn't happen during a peaceful time necessarily. It's that invisible force of power that comes in when we actually surrender. And sometimes we have to surrender during the storm, like Peter did. When he finally said, "Help." He thought he could do it all on his own, but he said, "Help." So I have an affirmation for all of us. The affirmation is, as I deepen my spiritual practice, I deepen my faith. So let's say that together. As I deepen my spiritual practice, I deepen my faith. Yes, and so it is. Let's say a closing prayer. God, thank you. Thank you for these healing waters and this opportunity to take refuge, to go within so that we could discover more, discover your power and presence in our lives more, God. And this connection that we have with you today, we are grateful to come together and to celebrate your presence, to know your presence more, and to feel and believe the faith that we have and that trust in you, God. We are grateful. Amen. Amen.